The idea of using the Snapchat Snap Map to track our locations sounded like an exciting way to stay connected and share our adventures. My friends Alex, Dave, Mike, and I had always been tech-savvy, so this seemed like a fun addition to our digital repertoire. Little did we know that our decision would lead us down a path of paranoia, dread, and relentless terror. It all began on a regular Friday night. We gathered at Alex's house, the headquarters for our weekly hangouts. The evening started like any other, with pizza, video games, and Snapchat stories. As the night progressed, our curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to activate the Snap Map feature. With a few taps on our phones, we could now see each other's real-time locations as Bitmoji avatars on the map. Initially, it was a blast. We'd watch each other's Bitmojis move around town, make jokes, and compare our activities. The excitement of tracking our friends turned into a harmless competition as we raced to visit obscure locations to update our Bitmoji statuses. That was until a new avatar appeared on the map, a disturbing red silhouette without a face. Our laughter turned to uncertainty as the anonymous user pinpointed our exact locations no matter where we were. We were baffled, unable to figure out how this stranger had access to our whereabouts. Mike, the most tech-savvy among us, tried to investigate but couldn't find any clues as to the identity of this intruder. The sinister Snap Map user didn't waste any time. Anonymous messages started pouring in, each more invasive and threatening than the last. "I see you. I know what you're doing. You can't hide." Our paranoia grew with every message. We even considered that it might be one of us playing a prank, but the escalating intensity of the threats suggested otherwise. We gathered around Alex's phone, huddled together, and decided to confront the stranger. Dave typed out a message. "Who are you? What do you want?" The response came swiftly, and it sent chills down our spines. "I am always watching. You cannot escape me." The Snap Map user was aware of our presence at Alex's house, even without us explicitly sharing it. The atmosphere in the room grew tense as we debated whether to involve the authorities. Mike insisted it was just a prank, while I feared it was something much darker. Alex, typically the voice of reason, suggested we continue to monitor the situation and gather evidence. In the hours that followed, the anonymous user's threats grew more personal. He referenced specific details of our lives, our daily routines, and even our families. The feeling of being constantly watched was suffocating, and the illusion of privacy shattered. Desperation took hold, and we reached out to Snapchat support for help. Their response was automated and unhelpful, leaving us feeling more vulnerable and trapped. As the night deepened, the stranger's messages grew increasingly hostile. He seemed to know our greatest fears and used them against us. It was as if he had access to our innermost thoughts and secrets. We decided to turn off the Snap Map feature, hoping to sever his access to our locations. The moment we deactivated the feature, an unsettling message arrived. "Turning it off won't save you. I'll find you wherever you go." Panic set in as we realized that our Snap Map settings did not bind this person. As the night wore on, the Snap Map user's threats escalated further. He sent disturbing images of us, taken without our knowledge, and even shared our home addresses. We knew we had to take action. In a frantic effort, we reached out to the local police. They arrived, taking our situation seriously and initiating an investigation. The intruder's identity remained shrouded in mystery, but the authorities were determined to trace the source of the threats. The following weeks were tense, with each of us living in constant fear. We took precautions to protect our online presence and physical security. The Snap Map feature had become a nightmare, and we felt violated in a way we couldn't have imagined. The police investigation yielded results, eventually tracking down the anonymous user who had tormented us. It turned out to be someone with a personal vendetta against our group, someone who had been harboring anger and resentment for reasons we could never have fathomed. We huddled in Jessica's dimly lit basement, the screens of our smartphones casting an eerie glow across our faces. It was a typical Friday night, filled with a sense of adventure and curiosity. Jessica, Mark, Sarah, and I, always on the lookout for the latest digital trends, had stumbled upon a chilling discovery. "All right, guys," I said with a smirk. "I found this online game called the Anonymity game. It's like a dare, but it takes place on Snapchat." The others leaned in, intrigued. "How does it work?" Mark asked, his curiosity piqued. "You send a message to a stranger," I explained, "and it's meant to be entirely anonymous. You give them a dare or ask them a question, and they have to respond." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her expression skeptical. "So what's the catch?" "The catch is," I continued, "it's not your typical truth or dare game. It's designed to be creepy. The responses are supposed to be unsettlingly specific." With cautious excitement, we each took out our phones and prepared to enter the sinister world of the Anonymity game. We began by sending our dares and questions to anonymous recipients, eagerly waiting for their responses. The first few challenges were relatively harmless. Mark dared a stranger to take a photo of a creepy abandoned building nearby, and they responded with a chilling image of the lonely structure. Sarah asked a question about a hidden secret, and the stranger answered with an unsettling revelation about their past. As the night progressed, our dares and questions grew progressively darker. I asked a participant to confess their deepest fear, and their response hinted at a disturbing phobia of mirrors. Jessica dared someone to go to the cemetery and send a selfie in front of a specific tombstone, which they did with eerie compliance. The atmosphere in the basement shifted. The initial excitement and intrigue had transformed into a sense of foreboding. The responses from strangers were growing too specific and too personal, and we couldn't shake the feeling that this game was crossing boundaries we never intended. Then it happened. Sarah dared an anonymous recipient to describe the layout of their bedroom, fully expecting the response to be a refusal. But, to our horror, the recipient sent a detailed message describing the exact placement of their furniture as if they were watching us. Panic washed over us as the realization set in that we had inadvertently invited someone with intimate knowledge of our lives into our game. The line between harmless fun and invasive intrusion had blurred, and we had no way of knowing the identity of the participant. Frantically, we decided to end the game and delete the Snapchat app from our phones. But just as we were about to hit the uninstall button, a new message arrived from the anonymous participant. Accompanied by a chilling photograph of Jessica's house, her car in the driveway, and a message that read, "I see you." Jessica screamed, her face pale, and we rushed to lock the doors and windows. Our sense of security had crumbled, and the unknown participant seemed to be closing in on us. We didn't know if they were watching from outside or had somehow gained access to our personal information. As we huddled in the dimly lit basement, the smartphone screens now casting sinister glows, the message notifications continued. The participant detailed our past activities, our fears, our secrets, and even our vulnerabilities. It was as if they had become an omniscient presence, lurking in the shadows of our lives. Fear gripped us as we realized that we had stumbled into something far more sinister than we could have ever imagined. The boundaries of the digital world had merged with the physical, and the consequences of the anonymity game were putting our lives in grave danger. We reached out to the authorities, providing them with all the information we had about the game. Still, the sinister participant remained elusive, and the threats continued. The line between our virtual existence and the real world had blurred irreversibly, and we were trapped in a terrifying game where anonymity had become a weapon of darkness. The experience left scars that would never truly heal, a reminder that the allure of the digital world could lead to unimaginable horrors. As the messages and threats continued, we were forced to confront the terrifying reality that our lives had become pawns in the anonymity game. A chilling tale of how a seemingly innocent app could spiral into a nightmare of paranoia and relentless terror. I have always been an avid user of Snapchat. Sharing snippets of my life with my friends through the app's Stories feature had become a daily ritual. One ordinary evening, as I lounged on my couch, I found myself mindlessly tapping through the Snapchat stories of people I knew, acquaintances, and a handful of strangers. Little did I know that this simple act would plunge me into a world of secrecy, danger, and unrelenting fear. As I swiped through one particular stranger's story, something on the screen caught my eye. It was a fleeting glimpse of the room, a muffled voice in the background, and a figure standing over something that seemed unmistakably like a person on the ground. My heart raced as I realized the gravity of what I might have witnessed. Fearing the worst, I attempted to replay the snap, but it had already vanished. I tried to find the user's profile, but I needed help finding it. Panic set in, and a sense of dread washed over me. I was certain I had stumbled upon something sinister, something that was never meant to be shared on a public platform. The following days were marked by sleepless nights and endless anxiety. I was plagued by the feeling that I had a moral obligation to find out the truth, to ensure that no one was in danger. I had to be certain that my eyes hadn't deceived me, and that what I saw on that Snapchat story was real. In the absence of any concrete leads, I turned to the digital world for answers. I scoured countless Snapchat accounts and profiles, hoping to stumble upon the same user's story once more. It was a relentless quest that consumed my every waking moment, and it led me down a labyrinth of empty leads and false trails. Then, one evening, as I sat at my desk, a chilling message arrived on my phone. It was a simple, cryptic sentence. "We know you saw it." My hands trembled as I read and reread the message. Someone was watching me, and they knew about the sinister snap I had encountered. The realization that I had become a target plunged me even deeper into a vortex of fear. Days turned into weeks, and I lived in constant fear, convinced that my every move was being monitored. I began to notice unfamiliar vehicles parked near my apartment, shadowy figures lingering in the corners of my vision, and the undeniable feeling that I was being watched. My life had transformed into a relentless nightmare where every moment was a battle for survival. Desperate for help, I reached out to the authorities, hoping they could provide me with some form of protection or assistance. However, their responses were dismissive, as if my story was nothing more than a product of an overactive imagination. With no help from the authorities, I was left to navigate the treacherous waters of fear and uncertainty on my own. The harassment escalated, with threatening messages flooding my social media accounts and anonymous phone calls disrupting my nights. Every moment became a test of my resilience, a challenge to my strength in the face of an unknown relentless enemy. I became convinced that I was being hunted, that the perpetrators of the crime believed I knew too much, that I had seen their faces, and that I was a liability to their dark operations. My once ordinary life had transformed into a living nightmare, a relentless pursuit where every shadow seemed to conceal a potential threat. In a desperate attempt to shake off my pursuers, I fled to a distant town, hoping to find solace and safety in anonymity. But even there, the haunting messages and the unrelenting fear followed me, a constant reminder that I had become the accidental witness, entangled in a dangerous game where the price of knowing too much was a life haunted by relentless terror. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and my life had become a relentless battle for survival in the face of the unknown, a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape.